Hey everybody, this is the GAO Studio Rich version 3. At least that's what I'm going by the advertisement photos that I've seen. We can assume that the V1 is the polycarbonate one. If there's a V2, I don't know about it, but this said V3, so that's what I'm going to go with. And it is a mechanical / magnetic hybrid. It can be either or, and it is also very, very modular and fairly complicated. So I've spent some time with this. I've taken it apart many times, learned a lot of things, and I hope to share that with you here. It may take a little bit, but I think I've narrowed it down. There also is construction going on right outside of my apartment, and I don't think they're going to quit anytime soon. So stick around and we'll talk about this thing. So I said that this could be either or, mechanical or magnetic, but the fact is it can be either or both. And when it comes to you, it's actually set up as both. And I don't think you're going to want to keep it that way. I mean, it's a crunchy texture. It's a mix between the two, mechanical and magnetic. And once you try it in the other modes, you'll not want to do it like this again. I don't think so. So that's the first thing to mention. This was available in two materials. You could get it in either stainless steel or aluminum, and I would recommend the stainless steel for sure, because these tiny screws, you're going to be taking them out and putting them back in an awful lot, and the stainless steel is going to hold up to that a lot better than the aluminum does, and you're less likely to strip anything out. And I think the price difference was only like $10 or something like that. So the plastic material that you see in between here is POM, and I did not take the time to look that up. I'm sure it's just a chemical abbreviation. It's a little sticky when it's being pushed. If you put any pressure on it and you're trying to slide it, it wants to stick. And again, right now it's set up kind of in a weird configuration where it's both mechanical and magnetic, so we shouldn't really judge it too much on what you're seeing and what you're hearing right now, because you're probably not going to keep it this way. But either way, when you have it set up in the other modes, this plastic on plastic can still be a little sticky. And they included a big roll of Teflon tape. I'll show you the box that it came in, what it came with here in a second. Let's just go to that. Something you should know right up front about GAO, and once again, they did not fail to come through in the worst of ways. Virtually no, aside from the magnets, there were no spare parts. I have a screwdriver that's too small for the screws that are on there, so that's dangerous to use. You strip your screw heads. That's just something that came, probably the magnets were in. That's what the toy was in. Some foam, and they did this with the other thing I just got, the rifle, I think. It's a pretty big roll, don't you think? It's black, I like that. So I'll use it one way or another. Probably not on this, but that's it. No spare parts. I mean, they should have put extra screws in. They should have given you another spring, because the spring it comes with, I'm not quite satisfied with. I'm lucky I have extra springs around, so I have one that was a little stronger to put in there. It should have come with all of these mechanicals with balls, should come with at least 3 or 4 different material types of balls, so that the user can try different things. I mean, you're missing a huge opportunity. That's what we're all looking for, and none of us want to have to go to Amazon and buy 1,000 3-point whatever millimeter balls to get, just what we need. We only need a couple. So the manufacturers are already buying these things in bulk. Just throw a few more extras in there. GAO's just terrible for that. At least they didn't throw in anything on this one that didn't make any sense, like a part that didn't look like it didn't belong, like a 1 inch or like a 1/2 inch marble or something. Like, oh, how are you supposed to use that? That's the kind of thing GAO does. So let's move on from that. So I don't think I've talked about construction yet. Well, you'll see when I take it apart much more clearly, but just to give you a quick general idea, there's a whole series of holes on both sides of both sides. Right now, and the way it came, was that there are 8, or a row of 4 and another row of 4 large magnets on this side, and then 4 small ones here and 4 small ones here. it only came with enough magnets to put 8 large ones on one side and 8 large ones on the other side, or 8 large ones on one side and 8 small ones on the other side. They did not give you enough small magnets so that you could make this an all small magnet setup, which they should have. You could buy some if you really want to do that. I'm happy enough. I've decided, once I've taken this apart, and I'll show you the 2 different modes, I would be happy with it just the way it is. So I don't need those. But as far as extra parts go, it's always good. Yeah, that's basically how it's constructed. And the next thing we'll do, we'll just cover the weights and measurements and stuff like that and comparisons, and then we'll dive into taking it apart. So while we're at this point, let's get a few things out of the way. Let's just do some comparisons. I'll give you the weight and measurement. That'll be approximate because we're going to change the weight. But the one I found that was closest in size and shape to this is the Sky Tower by GAO. So if you have one of those, that would be a good reference. Whoops. So very, very similar. The one most of us have, Mackie CP3. You know what I forgot to do there is to open it up. And finally, I thought it would be a good idea to compare it with this, the Metal Toys DZ Top B slider. It is also similar, although it's a bit smaller. So that takes care of comparisons. Now, let's do some measurements. It is 20 millimeters wide, 12 millimeters thick, and 51 millimeters tall. When it's extended the whole way, it is 73 millimeters long. So that takes care of measurements. Let's do weight. Right around 50 grams. So, aluminum, of course, will be a little bit less, but not too much. This is still pretty light. When you take everything out of it, the magnets are actually adding a lot of weight to this. So, the proper tool, I told you the screwdriver they gave us was too small. A Phillips 1 seems to fit best. And I think that's important because if you use a screwdriver that's too small and torque down on this too hard, you'll end up stripping your screw head, and they didn't give you any extra screws. So I'd go with the Phillips 1 if you have the access, or just find one that fits as perfectly as possible. Before we take this out, a quick little tip that you can try to keep this in your mind anytime you're dealing with the magnets, and that is we want to deal with the small magnets first. Remember I said there's 8 big magnets on one side and 8 small ones on the other side. We always want to deal with the small ones first. That'll become a little bit more clear here in a second. So, which side has the large magnets? Which side has the small magnets? You can take your extra magnets that they did give you and come over here and just feel the strength of the magnets. And you hear the rattling. That's not very strong to me, and it's pretty rattly. So flip it over, flip your magnets over, and do the same thing over here. These are definitely tighter, they're not rattling as much, and the magnet strength is much stronger. So we can assume that this side has the large magnets in it, and this side has the small magnets in it, and we want to deal with the small magnets first. So let's go ahead and pop this side off. Keep it gently squeezed together. That way, the spring and balls are not going to come out and blind you, but a combination of the magnets flying apart, and who knows what that could lead to, that could hit you in the eye. So we should be able to just now, what we want to do that's very important is line these puppies up. Very important. I almost didn't do that. Shame on me. We would have had a mistake there, a mess maybe. So I want to line these up because the magnets on the bottom, the big magnets, are going to help keep the small magnets in place once we lift this cover off. So we should be able to lift this off just slowly and straight up, and it won't bother anything. Here's one of the balls stuck on here. That's fine. There's the spring, we'll take that out. And what did I want to do first? I don't know what I said, magnets or spring? I said we'll take the spring and balls out. So let's take that other ball out. It is stuck down in there, and I think maybe it's a risk getting in here with another magnet. No, it doesn't want to come out that way. Okay, I'm going to carefully make sure these stay in place. Okay. Oh, it did come out. I wonder if it came out earlier. I hope not. That would be stupid. Anyhow, the ball's out now. So let's go ahead and put the lid back on. And we want to get this ball off of here too. That was stuck on there. There might be a little bit of lubrication or something from the factory on there. I don't know. But those white zirconium oxide ceramic balls are what came with it. I actually prefer, I have some stainless steel balls that are the same size. And that size I measured at 2.87 millimeters, which I think we would round up to 3. I don't think anything any larger would fit down in this cavity down here. So keep that in mind. But now we can just put this directly back down on top. Now keep these bottom two pieces together and just get this out of the way enough so we have access to the screw hole. Yeah, not much thread engagement. I mean, you only turn it about 1 or 2 turns and it's in place. If you crank down on any more than that, you'll strip the threads. Okay, so this is magnet only. Get these out of the way. It's nice, and it has that rattly, you know, it doesn't rattle when you're carrying it around, but it has that crunchy, not rattly, that crunchy sound that everybody seems to be so fond of with free-floating sliders like the Wrapped and some others. You know, they like to hear that magnet rattling around in there a little bit, and that's most likely the smaller magnets that we hear. We'll find out in the very end when we put in the large magnets on both sides. But yeah, this is where you start to notice that the plastic, I said it was POM, I believe, POM material, is a little sticky against itself, because if you squeeze on these two surfaces, it gets harder to, you know, it's harder to do a draw back than it is to do a push forward. And I think out of habit, I always find myself pushing on the back edge of sliders rather than using the surface. I prefer to use the surface. It all depends. I guess it all depends. I shouldn't say that I prefer one over the other. I do like the fact that this is just, no matter which way you pick it up, it's going to be the same. It's a little frustrating. I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but sometimes it's some fidgets, you really only tend to hold them in your hand one way, and this one, it just doesn't matter. So I like that, and I like the magnets. I said it. I actually tried to do this before and had some outtakes, and I was thinking to myself, if I had the money, I would get another one of these in stainless, just so I could have one as a magnetic and one as a mechanical. So you can tell I like it, and wait till we get to the mechanical part, which we're going to do next. So just like before, we want to locate the side that has the small magnets. So let's get our other magnets. That feels like the loose, smaller magnets. These That feels a little stronger. Let's double check this side again. Yeah, these are definitely the small magnets. There's a significant difference between the two, and you can really hear them rattling around in there more. So, this is the side we want to take apart. Okay. Again, lift this straight off. You shouldn't have any problems. And now we want to remove these 8 small magnets and put back in the 2 balls and the spring. So I'm going to use the magnets I have out, the spares, to extract the 8 magnets that are in here. Alright, they're all out. Now we can take the ball, drop a ball down, and see how this slides freely? And the detents are on the bottom there. So one ball goes down in there. And then the spring. Again, I said their spring is a little weak, I think. I prefer a stronger spring that I have, and I also prefer the stainless steel balls that I have over these white zirconium oxide balls. So now it's kind of standing there, kind of balancing, and what you need to do is just bring, we're not worried about magnets anymore now because we've taken them all out, and nothing's going to spring around, but the ball could fling off if you get this cocked sideways or something. So again, you want to try to come down, straight down on it. Use your sense of touch to ensure that you feel that ball and spring sinking down into that hole, because when you put this on, that ball is going to be pushed all the way down in there. So let's give that a shot. We'll line everything up. Just slowly, gently push it down and turn it sideways. You see it's laying flat. I've got it. Now I can push, keep the layers together. They're not screwed together yet, but push it out of the way enough that we can get access to the screw holes again. Remember, you do have to keep a little pressure on this now because that spring and the 2 balls are in there, and they're trying to push outward. So, go to the other side. Oops. I should get my tweezers out, and I will do that in the next break. Okay, we are now in mechanical mode. One, two. I can get you in focus for sure. Okay, it's 8 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'm applying a little bit of squeezing force to the sides just to regulate how fast it comes down, but it's not like a magnet slider. It's not like if I touch it up here, it's going to slam all the way down. I can do this free-handed if I'm careful enough and gently push it 1 click at a time. I didn't do a very good job there, but you get the idea. There, not bad. I would never do it like that. My thing is to walk around like this. And this one has 8 clicks. But again, doing a back draw requires putting a little squeezing pressure on it, and that gets difficult to do because these plates want to stick together. Again, if you want to, you can put Teflon tape strips in here. I'm not going to do that. Typically, I only push forward and backward like this. But I like that. I think it's pretty good. I'm a little disappointed in the tolerances here. Try to lay that down and give you a good representation. So But there's, they could have made that a little bit better. There's nothing we can do about it at this point. But it's not going to fall apart, and it's not flimsy. And yeah, as I said in an earlier segment there, when we were talking about the magnetic setup, I wish I could afford to have another one, just so I could have a magnetic one and a mechanical one. Who knows? I might treat myself. But yeah, I think this is a winner. Aside from the complexity of taking it apart and putting it together, and really, if you remember what I said about just dealing with the small magnets first, you'll be in pretty good shape. Okay, so let's get down to putting the big magnets in. And I may have misspoken a little bit at the beginning of this. I'm not sure. I've done so many different takes and cuts and deleted different things along the way. I'm not sure if I said it to you or not. But there is a critical thing about magnet management on this. And it really only occurs, putting the big magnets in at this point is not the big deal that I was thinking it was just a few minutes ago. I had forgotten that it's not a big deal because we do have some big magnets in here already. So we're basically going to pop off this top and use the attraction of those bottom magnets to easily put in the big magnets on the top level and put the lid back on. Where the problem arises is if you're like me and you're going to go mechanical, like this is mechanical right now, but right now we still have magnets on one side. That's extra weight that I don't need and I don't want, and I don't really, if I'm not going to be using it magnetically, I'm going to take the magnets out. That's where the problem arises. If you have to do a cold start from this and put the magnets in from the very beginning, there's a trick to that. So that will be like the very last segment that we do. I know I probably said this was like the last segment. We're going to put the big magnets in and we'll be done. But I'm sorry, this is just a complicated piece, and I'm trying to keep it all in my head as much as I can as I go along. That's interesting. I can hear the brass piece, the slug moving around in there. I didn't notice that before. It's actually kind of nice. So mechanical mode. Mechanical mode with magnets still installed. Next step is to put in the large magnet. Okay, so let's put in the large magnets. So which side has the magnets in? It's this side. Double check. Of course, there should be no magnets at all on that side. That is the side we want to open. Okay. It's a good habit just to, anytime you're going to take this apart, bring everything back to center. Just bring everything back to center. I think that's a good practice. That way, whether you have magnets in it or not, you're prepared. We're not going to need the spring and the balls anymore. Okay, so large magnets are on this side. Is that the attracting side? No, it's not. So let me move the small magnets over here. Try this again. Yes, I'm going to double check all of them. Make sure nothing has ever been flipped over. They're all attracting. Since there are magnets on the bottom side, it is not a very big deal to put the large magnets in, like I might have thought that it was, but like I said, I got a little confused. Again, the most difficult thing of all is to start this thing up from cold if you've taken all the magnets out of it, like I plan to do with mine because I plan to carry mine mechanically. Then you really need a tip on how to get everything back together, and I'm going to show you that next. So here we go. This is all strong magnets, both sides. Put the screws back in. I wonder if I'm sure we've reached the half-hour point by now. Not that I don't enjoy this. Okay. Yeah, that's harder, a lot harder to push. Not so much when you push down on it, although that is pretty stiff. You may like that. For me, I'm going to be happy with small magnets on one side and big ones on the other. This is a little too much for me. I would have to put tape on here if I insisted on having this kind of strength. So, okay, let's quickly move on to taking all the magnets out of this, and I'll show you how to do a cold start. I'm going to speed up the process of taking out all the magnets. Okay, so I opted not to show you a high-speed disassembly and just take this thing apart and get down to the middle of it, so to speak. So this is the sliding assembly, and it's two of those POM plastic pieces held together by a little brass sandwich. And you can take these two screws out of either side and pop that apart if you want to. In fact, I resorted to that on one of my earlier attempts where I was doing that trick that Sean Kusan taught us all of using like a butter knife to put underneath there. Now these stacked plates are too thick to put a butter knife underneath and use that to help keep the magnets in. So what happens is if you try to put the big magnets in first, remember I said always go for the small magnets first. If you try to put the big ones in first, they will not stay in. They'll pop out and smack into each other, and you'll be lucky if they don't break. So we want to put the small magnets in first. And that can only be done just as carefully as you can without vibrating this thing. Don't get it anywhere near. Whoop. As soon as you put a magnet in there, you want to get the rest of the magnets away from it. And keep the rest of the magnets away from it. See if we can be lucky enough to do this. This one is a little sensitive. Now doing this prevents us from having to do the butter knife trick. You can see the other magnets just shifting as I get anywhere near this thing. Okay, so far, so good. Now, trying to remember exactly what the next step. Okay, so it pays to stop and think because I had forgotten. I was about ready to take this plate and just put it down on there, and I remembered that they used a stainless steel that is somewhat magnetic. Now, I think that's probably an indication of a lower grade stainless steel because I have stainless steels that I've dealt with that are non-magnetic at all. So there's some iron content. And if I get these anywhere near these fragile little 8 tiny magnets that are just laying in there, begging to smash into each other, if I get this anywhere near them, they'll all pop out. So, now that we have everything in place, we're going to do a slightly risky maneuver here and cover everything up and approach it from the side. Okay? And I'm just making sure to keep my fingers down on the magnets so they don't pop out until I get it completely covered up. Like now, it's completely covered up. Keep it squeezed together. And we can put some screws back in. But you don't want to let that back plate up at all, because if you do, just 1 or 2 of the magnets, if there's enough room, will flip over. And you won't know until you test, which is what we're going to do as soon as we get these 2 screws in here. Alright, so that side's in together. It's going to stay together. Let's make sure the polarity is in the right direction. Those look good. Hey, those look good too. So now that we have those magnets in, it's going to greatly assist in putting the larger magnets in. And all we got to do is keep the top and bottom plates lined up and do the same thing we did a minute ago. Whoops. It may be easier to see and easier to do if I just put it down here. Whoops. Put it down here on a flat surface. You know what? I'm putting the small magnets in, and I want to put the large magnets in. So, there, we're in the right direction now. Except for that's a small one. Okay, now the magnets on the bottom are holding the top magnets on. You don't have to worry about this being magnetic. Just plop it back on there. Move it out of the way. Put your screws back in. Okay, well, that, friends, is it. I have nothing more to say about this. Put the small magnets in first. Keep that in mind. I like it. I think it's definitely worth it. I wish GAO give you more extra parts. Again, you could use Teflon tape. I don't think there's anything more to say about it. This is probably well over 45 minutes by now, I'm guessing. So thank you so much if you stuck around, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be glad to try and help in the comments. Thank you.